Hey guys, Ryan Devlin here. Happy to be back on the Jazz Lesson Videos channel. Today, I'm going to share with you some tips and concepts on adding large intervals into your playing. When you start implementing large intervals into your practice, it can really help you gain facility on your instrument as well as learning how to get more of a modern sound in your solos. All the concepts that we're going to talk about today are from my new resource with Jazz Lesson Videos called the Interval Method Book. In it, you're going to find a bunch of content on how to practice, implement, and perform with these large intervals. This book has over 50 lines in all 12 keys that are analyzed and written out for you. If you're interested in diving deeper into this material, you can click the link in the description to download the Intervallic Method book below. All right, let's get into the first chapter of this book. Throughout this entire method book, we're going to use the same 6 formulas. Each of these formulas showcase intervals larger than a fourth. Throughout the book, we will have these 6 formulas that stay the same and introduce new scales and new progressions to use them with. Each chapter and each subsection of each chapter has an explanation of what chords to use these formulas on and what they're trying to accomplish, inside and outside of the chord. So this first chapter is just the explanation of the 6 formulas. So let's go through them together. In this first explanation of each formula, we're just using our C major scale. I like to memorize most of these formulas in groupings of 4. So this first formula to me is a couple groups of 4 going through our major scale in C. So we have C to F, that's the interval of a fourth, then a step up F to G, and then a fifth down G to D. And then the pattern continues to repeat itself until we get back to C. So fourth up, fifth down, step up, and then the pattern repeats itself. Formula number 2 is basically the inverse of this. We have fourth down, step up, fifth up, step down, pattern repeats itself. Formula number 3 is a group of 3 this time, and we're just using our intervals of fourths going up in groups of 3. So we have C to F, F to B. Now you notice that in our major scale, sometimes we have the interval of a tritone, which is a little bit bigger than a fourth, smaller than a fifth. It's in between. Because we have half steps and whole steps, the major scale is not symmetrical. So some of these intervals will be moved around just a little bit. So in formula number 3, we have fourth up, sixth down to get to our next scale tone. To me, when I memorize these, I just think about a grouping of 3 that then starts over on the next scale tone of your major scale. C, F, B, that's your first grouping of 3, then that repeats itself D, G, C, E, A, D, and so on. So that's 6. I don't think about it as an interval in this pattern. I just think about going to that next scale tone. But it is the interval of a 6. So if that way of thinking helps you, you can use it. Formula number 4 is a little bit simpler. We're just going fourth up, fourth up, fourth up, fourth up on each one of our scale tones. But there is an interval of a minor third that connects those 2 fourths. So I think about this as a grouping of 2, C, F, D, G, E, A. But in order to get to the next grouping, you have to go down a minor third. So be aware of that. Formula number 5 is a 6-note grouping. We have fourth up, step down, fourth up, step down, fourth up, sixth down to get to that next scale tone. But really the entire formula or pattern is that 6 notes that just keeps repeating itself on each scale tone of our major scale. So fourth up, step down, fourth up, step down, fourth up, and then the pattern repeats itself. Formula number 6 is sort of an inverse of formula number 5, but this one is a 5-note grouping. So we have fourth up, step down, fourth down, sixth up, and then the pattern repeats itself. So the pattern starts on the 5 of your major scale. It starts on G. And we do those 5 notes until the pattern eventually repeats itself and lands on G again. So thinking about all these formulas diatonically, I memorize it by the note that it starts on, how many notes of intervals that I have, like what grouping it is, 4, 5, 2, whichever one. And then the pattern just continues to repeat itself diatonically on each mode of our major scale. So we'll keep these formulas the same and move on to our next chapter. Chapter 2 is going to tackle minor chorded vamps. In this minor chord vamp section, I have 2 examples of scales that I consider the home scales of a minor chord. One is the minor pentatonic, and the other is the melodic minor scale. So let's take a look at one of these formulas with our minor pentatonic scale. This is going to be formula number 6. Let's take a listen to it. So like I said in the first chapter of this book, formula number 6 is a 5-note pattern. And what's tricky about playing pentatonics now with these same big intervals is that a pentatonic scale only has 5 notes rather than 7. So you'll notice that some of the intervals are going to be changed a little bit because we have less notes to deal with. Let's analyze formula number 6 with our minor pentatonic scale. So how I like to memorize these minor pentatonic patterns is in a skips and steps method, rather than thinking about the individual intervals. So a step is anything that is stepwise in our minor pentatonic scale. That would be C to E flat to F, F to G, G to B flat to C, or in that inverse order. Anything that's a skip or a double skip will skip one of those notes or skip 2 of those notes. So this minor pentatonic formula has a couple versions of each of these. So first, when we go G to C, we're skipping B flat, so that's skip up. C to B flat, that's step down. B flat to F, that is skip down. F to C, that is skip down. So we have skip up, step down, skip down, skip down. And then when we go C to B flat, that is a double skip, because we're skipping a few notes. Technically a triple skip. We're skipping E flat, F, and G. So I would memorize these pentatonic patterns in those skips and steps rather than thinking about the individual intervals. It'll make it a little bit more efficient for you. Now let's check out an intervallic shifting example with our melodic minor scale. From chapter 2, 3, and 4, we're going to have 2 different kinds of these formulas. One is going to be diatonic on what I call the home scale of each one of these chords and progressions. And then we'll also have 2 different versions of intervallic shifting, meaning going outside of the key. We're always going to keep our same formulas, and each chapter will have an explanation of what, how, and where to put these. So now let's take a look at intervallic shifting over a minor chord vamp. We're going to stay in our key of C, and we're going to look at the melodic minor version of intervallic shifting. In this book, we go through 2 different versions of intervallic shifting on minor chords. One is up a half step, and one is up a minor third. In this case, we're going to look at one that's up a half step. So we're going to go between C melodic minor and C sharp melodic minor. Let's take a listen to it. So formula number 3 are those diatonic fourths going up. So we have fourth up, minor third down. In this case, fourth up, step down, fourth up. But the bare bones formula, if you looked at the diatonic version, would be fourth up, minor third down, fourth up, minor third down. So this is the intervallic shifting version where we do 4 notes of it in C melodic minor, and then we do 8 notes of it in C sharp minor. And as you heard in the playing example, it has that shifting sound where you can tell that I'm moving to a different key, but the formula stays the same. So it gives the ear something to latch onto, but the harmony is changing. It's a really cool way to implement new scales and new sounds into something that you're already familiar with, which is the exact point of this book. And as you can see, we have other examples in this book of how to shift in different amounts of notes. This is just a 4-note cell in the home key and then an 8-note continuation of that formula into the new key. So as you're practicing the diatonic formulas in all 12 keys that we have written, you can superimpose these in your own ways, in your own different kinds of groupings while still keeping the same formula. This is just my version of it. Let's check out formula number 2 over a major 2-5-1. So like I said, we're going to think about G mixolydian over the entire 2-5-1. A 2-5-1 progression is what I call a symmetrical progression, meaning each one of the chords is just an inversion of itself. D minor, G7, and C major are all related to one another, and they're all the same chord with a different root, basically. So you can think of this entire 2-5-1 as any one of these chords or scales. And in this case, we're thinking about it all as the 5 chord, because it's the easiest eventually to intervallic shift off of the 5 chord, which we'll see later on in this book. So we're going to take formula number 2, which is 4th down, step up, 5th up, step down, over G mixolydian over the entire 2-5-1. Let's take a listen to that. This is a really great concept on tackling difficult keys of 2-5-1s. Just think about the 5 chord in that mixolydian scale. And you can play intervallically, diatonically, and make it sound really cool just by playing one scale over all 3 chords. Let's move on now to our intervallic shifting example over a major 2-5-1. So we're going to take formula number 1 and now shift up a half step with our same mixolydian scales. So we're going to start in G7 mixolydian, and then we're going to move up to A flat 7 mixolydian, and then resolve back to G7, all using that same formula number 1. So as you can see, we start the first measure in G7 following formula number 1, and then we shift up to A flat 7 over our second measure, continuing the formula, and then we resolve back to G7 using that same formula. So with formula number 1 in our intervallic shifting example, we're using that same formula of 4th up, step down, 5th down, but we're starting in G7, moving up to A flat, continuing the formula, and then resolving to G. So similar to how we did that minor vamp example, we're going up a half step. There's other formulas in this book that go up a tritone on our 251. That's another example of intervallic shifting. This example, we're keeping the same formula as formula number 1, 2 Mixolydian scales, G7 and A flat, and shifting up and down in those half steps to gain that intervallic tension. Now let's move on to chapter number 4, tackling minor 251s. In this chapter, the home scale of our minor 251 is what we call the altered scale. The altered scale is your melodic minor scale, a half step up from the 5 chord of the 251. The reason why we call this the altered scale is that it has every alteration of a dominant chord. It has the flat 9, the sharp 9, the sharp 11, and the flat 13. But it also has the major third of the dominant chord and the root. So it's a little bit inside and a lot outside. But it really fits a minor 251 like it's the home scale. So for this portion of the minor 251 section, the first 6 formulas will be using A flat melodic minor over a 251 to C minor. So let's take a look at formula number 3 with our A flat melodic minor scale over a 251 to C minor. So formula number 3 are these stacked fourths in groups of 3. So fourth up, 6 down, fourth up, 6 down. And we're using this sound on A flat melodic minor over this 251. Let's take a listen. So to me, even though we have E flat, A flat, D flat, B flat, E flat, G flat on top of D minor 7 flat 5, the sound of the 251 really comes from the altered dominant. And like I said in chapter 3, 251s are symmetrical progressions. And minor 251s are very similar to this. You can substitute the 2 chord or the 5 chord for one another. So in this case, I'm thinking about this minor 25 as a long altered 5 to 1, making my home scale the A flat melodic minor scale or the G altered scale. You're playing G to G in the key of A flat melodic minor, also known as the 7th mode of melodic minor. But I call it the altered scale because it has all the alterations of a dominant chord. Moving on to our intervallic shifting method in chapter 4 with minor 251s, we are going to now intervallic shift from A flat melodic minor or G altered to up a tritone to C sharp melodic minor. So you'll see in our example here, we're keeping that same intervallic formula where we go 4th up, minor 3rd down, 4th up, keeping that diatonic section going. And then halfway through the formula, when we get to our 5 chord, we are shifting to that C sharp minor tonality. Here's how it sounds. So we have 2 methods in this section, 3 formulas of each, where we go up a tritone from that altered 5 chord, or we go down a major third, so we can shift to E flat minor. Again, gaining flexibility inside of our tonality and outside of our tonality really helps us feel more free when we're playing these progressions. Let's move on to chapter 5 now, where I'm going to show you how to implement and practice your own versions of these formulas. So chapter 5 is the section that we're calling fill in the blank. We are putting parts of formulas that are diatonic and parts of formulas that are intervallic shifting that are not completed. It's your job to utilize how you've practiced these formulas throughout the book and then make your own versions of them. You can write them in, you can just improvise with them, but the goal is to fill in the blank and aim for certain intervallic shifting or diatonic intervallic lines over these progressions and chord vamps. Here's some examples of me trying this out over the fill in the blank examples that we have in the book. As you can see, I'm shifting in and out, sometimes keeping the formula the same, sometimes making my own version of the formula, but I'm gaining flexibility thinking about large intervals in and out of the chord changes. This book is meant to show you how to practice these, implement these, and perform with these. And this last chapter of filling in the blank is really passing the baton to you to start writing your own versions of these exercises. Let's take a look at number 2 that we have here in chapter 5. So this is over a C minor vamp, and you can see I have the 2nd and 3rd measures lined up for you. The pattern that's written is formula number 1. And as you can see, we're in a different key. We're up a minor 3rd. So you can either decide to stay in that key at the beginning or start in C minor and then shift up to E flat minor. And you'll notice that our last note is E flat, the common tone that we have between our intervallic shifting and our home key. We're going to end up resolving at the end of the phrase. So you can take it as far out as you want, aim for that E flat minor section, and then resolve. This is a great way to practice and implement this way of intervallic playing that when practiced consistently will become subconscious. You'll feel very free and have that modern sound in your playing. All right, everybody, that concludes our video. I hope you enjoyed and got some information on how to add intervallic formulas and lines into your solos. I really think this is a big part of that modern sound that a lot of jazz musicians are doing now and have been doing for the last 30 years. If you're interested in diving deeper into this material, you can click the link in the description to download the Intervallic Method book below. Make sure to comment, like, and subscribe, and click the notification bell so you'll be notified when we post a new video. And I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next one. Have a good one.